Welcome to Wealth 101. I'm Norman Howe, Managing Director at Azure Group Wealth, and thanks for joining us. Today I want to talk to you about a bit of a technical subject. It's to do with self-managed super fund, or you think about going into it. This is just an issue that you really need to think about. So if you've got a self-managed super fund or you're a trustee, one of the big things is liquidity. What am I talking about? Well, let me run through for you. So one of the advantages of having your own self-managed super fund is that there's a variety of investments that you can put into the fund, and you choose to do that. One of them might be, say, a rental property, or if you're in business, it might be your business commercial premises. However, there's always a possibility if something goes wrong, and there's two of you in the super fund and someone dies, and you need to pay out someone's benefit. If you haven't got the cash, but you've got a property, or some large liquid asset, what are you going to do about it? So what does it mean? There's a thing called the liquidity trap. So I'm going to talk to you about that. Basically, let's have a look at the first situation where you own a business property. It's in your self-managed super fund, small business. And what is going to happen then is, one of the effective strategies for estate planning is we agree that if something happens to either one of us, then what we'd like to do is to leave that property in the fund and not be forced to sell it. One of the problems comes about then is, if you haven't got the cash, how are you going to give half a property to someone? And the answer is you really can't. Also too, there's a lot of people thinking about or using super to buy a property and to leverage and to use a limited recourse borrowing arrangement. You've got the same problem there, but it's a little bit more complicated. So let's have a look at the first thing, where we'll keep it nice and simple. Two members, we'll call them John and James, and they've got a self-managed super fund, a little bit of cash, but the main asset is in fact their premises. So they're both partners, they're aged 45, and the premise is worth about $390,000. There's $10,000 in cash. So we'll presume that they own half of it each. So it's $200,000 each. Okay, so now what's going to happen is, let's say the trustees themselves, not the members, but the trustees, decided to protect themselves and avoid the liquidity trap. And how do you do that? You take out some insurance. So the trustees went off and did that. So if John was to pass away, the proceeds of the life insurance would come to the trustees of the fund, not to John's beneficiaries. So the trustees then have that money there, and what they can do now is allow the property to remain where it is inside the fund. At the same time, pay out John's beneficiaries the $200,000. So how does that work? Before anything happened, each of the two members had in their fund accounts $195,000, which comprised half the property and half the cash of $5,000. So that's how we got the $200,000 each. When John died, the trustees, they received $400,000, and what that's allowed them to do now is to increase the fund from $400,000 to $800,000. I've now got $400,000 in cash. I can pay out John's beneficiary, and his partner James can in fact still stay inside the fund, and his assets in the fund now are $390,000, which is all the property, and the $10,000 in cash, $400,000. So if the insurance was taken out by the trustees, you can do that. If, however, and this is what most people tend to do, is they take it out on behalf of the member. That means the member owns it and not the trustee. If that same scenario was in fact carried out, but that $400,000 belonged to the member, we've now got a major problem, because the fund itself doesn't have the liquidity to pay out $600,000, which would be the $400,000 received from the insurance and half the property. It's a big trap, and it's something that if you've got a self-managed super fund, you really should look at. This is a specialty area, and a lot of people say they can do these types of things, but you really need to go to someone who specialises and practices this on a regular basis. I'm Norman Howe. Thank you for joining us.